When X-Men 97 was announced, I was not looking forward to it. Another franchise being brought back from the dead. Well, first off, you know it's going to be rife with modern politics, and even if it's not, a lot of these cash grabs rely on nothing but nostalgia and are fairly mediocre in terms of quality. However, 97 actually manages to surprise and, dare I say, subvert expectations. It does so by elaborating on the universe without overstretching it, having good action scenes, and connecting us with personal drama.
For every mutant still out there.
By the way, there's going to be tons of spoilers. Usually I don't care for spoiler culture, but this show is recent and it's actually pretty cool. Comics in general are convoluted and demand that the reader knows a decade of backstory to enjoy the content. Comics are the printed equivalent of telenovelas, where the long-lost brother of Esteban was actually just himself in disguise, and the priest at the church is also his father. It's a bunch of nonsense. Comics play the telephone game, so multiple writers over the years contradict each other and create confusion and chaos. 97 goes back to an era where the comics were already convoluted, but less so, and we had a more consistent cast that was well established. We're lost now in a perpetual sea of crossover events, but back then, Age of Apocalypse and all the stories the 90s show reference were fewer and further between, and less spread. Days of the Future Past was 2 issues only, by the way. We'll come back to that point later. The X-Men are in a school, but their numbers never reflected that, and when they did, you never cared. A lot of the new X-Men are just background characters, and deservedly so. Who cares about Glob Herman? Most of these characters always felt like background extras that were meant to give a false sense of impression of the school's expansion. It's much better to limit the franchise to a smaller cast with occasional additions and cameos. When Cyclops and Jean are busy, Nightcrawler fills the void. Best depiction of Nightcrawler, by the way. There's a lot of drama in this show, and the boys and girls argue non-stop, but it feels natural. The girls become emotional, but it comes from somewhere that makes sense. A lot of modern media have men and women at war for ideological reasons. It's nice to have them naturally be at odds because of the context. The budget allows for good fight scenes that are well choreographed, a rarity in Western media. It's also lore accurate. They remember that Cyclops' blasts are kinetic. They also allow themselves to be creative. Showing the teleportation of Nightcrawler from the inside was a neat detail, especially the perspective shift. The original show had a limited budget and could feel stiff at times. The new show really carries that energy that comic heroes used to have, that design philosophy of dynamic poses that presented larger-than-life figures and the ideal of the human condition. Now, going back to the personal drama, you become invested in the life of the X-Men. One thing I thought they could not pull off was the death of Gambit. Modern media brings back your favorites just to have them die a mediocre death. Here he got a chance to prove himself, going out with his catchphrase. They actually held off on using it, and he went out in style. The tragedy that follows and the repercussions of it are poignant. From Jubilee being mad at Rogue for not showing up at the funeral and her eventual assassination of Trask, I'm hooked. I like that the group reprimanded Rogue for killing Trask, but didn't make too much of a deal of it either. X-Men do kill sometimes. This Batman I will never kill bullshit is too far gone. Now the show reopened my eyes to how good these comics were. I go back to them once in a while, and these stories are still good, and the art is exquisite, but this time I made the mistake of trying to catch up to current X-Men. Oh boy! First off, I will never cease to despise ideological lecturing. When people have distasteful ideologies, it shows. Curse everyone who said that the Krakoa run was good until Hickman left. They're similar to the people who say that the Flash show was good and it got worse later. No, it was always bad. The only difference is that the Flash show is just poorly written. The Hickman run, on the other hand, is an ideological nightmare, even before the writers kept the Krakoa storyline going. Krakoa is the name of the new island that they live on. It's Genosha for poor people. We have Asteroid X at home. The Krakoa era of the X-Men starts with Professor X starting a mutant ethno-state on a remote island, the island of Krakoa. For some reason now he looks really sinister and fabulous. He tells all the nations of the world to accept the X-Men, and in exchange he will give them a drug that extends your life of 5 years, another that cures all disease of the mind, and another that is an adaptive antibiotic. If you refuse to accept their sovereignty as a nation, or incur their wrath, they will send Omega-level mutants to deal with you. Never mind the fact that he bypassed the sovereignty of other nations first by building portals and embassies on their grounds. He also proceeds to clone all mutants that died and resurrect them in their prime. They call it resurrection, but they're clones. X-23 dies and gets resurrected, but she turned out to be alive, so now there's 2 of her. They just brush it off. Xavier simply uses 5 mutants and the resources of the island to grow other mutants and put a backup of their memories in the clones. He can even change the memories. The run is on the verge of concluding with all the X-Men dying. Again, for the 5th time. At their annual gala, Xavier cut a backroom deal with the new antagonist. He knew Nimrod, the anti-mutant machine, was going to attack, but thought compromising was better. Unbest known to him, all the mutants were sent into a meat grinder, quote-unquote, when they were sent through portals. Here comes the Xavier was always evil squad. In actuality, they were sent to the Hot White Room, the afterlife of the Phoenix, ready to be resurrected. From his point of view, however, he sent all the mutants to die. This run is awful. From the very start, the premise is flawed, and the reasoning given by fans as to why the run is good is that it's different. The cope is incredible. It's so bad, the only way you can accept it is that it's different. The mutants are no longer heroes. They have no morals, and being different doesn't mean a thing is good. The X-Men have their own ethno-state, a thing that is the supreme evil according to the left, and blackmail other nations. They kidnap mutant children to force them to live with them because they're also mutants, and now every mutant is a friend. You have to be with us, comrade, or against us. Even past villains like Juggernaut and Mr. Sinister, they all like each other now all of a sudden because of their ethnic group. Sounds familiar. Sounds like the degenerate rantings of the left. It gets worse. So most of the X-Men are in the afterlife. There's maybe 20 mutants left on Earth, most of them being people you don't care about, like Miss Marvel, because yeah, she's a mutant now, who fucking cares? Cyclops is alive and he's stuck in a kangaroo court. He's being blamed for all the misdeeds of the mutants because he was the X-Men leader. Death row awaits him, despite the fact that he disagreed with Xavier. During the Hellfire Gala, he wanted to go down swinging. He's a tactician, but he has morals. He won't get in bed with monsters. He was right, Mr. Sinister betrayed them. The irony. Shadowcat again doesn't walk with Xavier's bullshit. That's one consistent thing. She did the same thing when Cyclops was evil. And Emma Frost is actually in a well-drawn book with Iron Man having cool adventures. But otherwise, most of the shit is crap. Iceman is still gay and gets brought back by the power of gay love. His empath lover brought the remnants of him back. He then immediately cheats on him. You can tell by reading that these people have dubious morals, and I'm wary of anyone who likes these runs because they're different. Let's go back to crossover events. These really got out of hand over the years. They grew in number and in length. The Krakoa run exemplifies everything that is wrong with X-Men and by extension modern comics. This run has been going on for well over 2 years. A story being told in multiple books instead of one ongoing series. Disaster level events that will reset the status quo anyway later on. And a crossover event with too many issues spread over too many different ongoing series and too many tie-in issues. Also, that means nothing. They have Dragon Balls. I hate it. It's nonsense. X-Men 97 brought back something that I forgot I needed, and even then, it's probably a bait and switch. The second season is sure to be trash. It's a thing that the left always does, but here it's assured. They give you a good first season and then the second or the third one is crap. Bo DeMaio is the gay black man who directed the first season. You can tell, however, that he's an actual fan. The parents of Bastion were random characters you saw in the background in early seasons. He was proud of pointing that out. He knew his shit. He's a nerd. It seemed too good to be true, however. It was. Disney fired him. It's clear that he was hired for his identity, but when he didn't put his politics in the show, they cut ties with him. He and his team finished writing season 2, but now that he's gone, they're probably going to rewrite the script. You can expect season 2 to be a nightmare. If not season 2, season 3. Season 2 will probably stink of lefty meddling. They got rid of the one who made the show what it is. The excuse was that he had an OnlyFans, or so I heard. For the most part, I didn't find any concrete reason so far. They usually fire people after a scandal, so the pre-firing seems strange. I don't think we're going to find weird things about him. We already know he has an OnlyFans. Funny how they fired a gay black man. How bigoted of them. Companies like Disney serve you crap immediately. If they hire someone else, they force them to make crap, or it will turn to crap. Eventually. If you do your own thing, they come after you, like with Stellar Blade. There's no escaping. On my part, I recommend that you read the old X-Men. X-Men Volume 2 of Jim Lee and Chris Claremont. Uncanny X-Men by Claremont, and X-Factor, the Simonson run and the Peter David run. Claremont wrote all things relevant to X-Men, like Days of the Future Past and Dark Phoenix. All the things that got adapted to cinema were basically him. The Simonsons were a married couple and also had their iconic moment like Angel losing his wings. David greatly elaborated the character of Quicksilver and made him one of my favorite characters to date with Spider-Man and Cyclops. Honestly, the only thing I can truly recommend is to reject modernity and read old X-Men, people.